Welcome. This is Joe Miller, and I'm here welcoming Shavonn Richardson with me. Welcome, Shavonn. How are you today?
I'm well, Joe. How are you?
I'm doing great. I'm so glad that you're here with me today.
Thanks
I'm
for having
excited.
me.
Oh, you're very welcome. I'm excited. Today, our topic is about leaning into leadership and advancing the grant profession. Shavonn and I have been talking about this for a little while now. We had her on GrantChat earlier and had this as the topic. As I get to know a little bit more about Shavonn and her philosophy and vision and view about leadership and the grants profession and how she got here, I was compelled to bring her on here so that we could talk about it and share this and her story and her journey with you guys today. So, Shavonn, what brought you to the grant profession and inspired you to do the kind of work that you're doing?
Well, I think I can relate to a lot of other fellow grant professionals that I kind of fell into it by accident, right? Often hear that story, right? So the beginning of it was really built around an unfortunate event, actually. I lost my grandfather to prostate cancer. And my mother and I started a nonprofit because we lost him to prostate cancer and we were his caregivers, and we just didn't know what to do, how to support him, what to do, right? So shortly after losing him, we started a nonprofit that's all about empowering men that are suffering and caregivers to get about having access to resources as far as prostate cancer. So that's how I got started, actually, just writing for our nonprofit organization, right? Out of no budget to hire a grant writer, no one else to do it. So you kind of just rise to the occasion, right? So that's how I got started and got every single grant we applied for. And I said, wow, the skill is there. There's something there. At the very same time, I was working at Bank of America Foundation as a program manager, reviewing grants every day. And I said, wow, this is kind of helping me hone my skills. And so, those two experiences kind of got me to start Thinking in Grant Consulting in 2016.
That's great. And that's when you launched Think and Ink Grants Consulting. I love that you have your logo there. That's great. So people know who you are and what you're doing. I love what you're doing with that. So, you talked about your mom and you coming together and doing this. Is that something that's been, kind of part of the way you were raised or part of your family? Is that?
Yeah. Well, a lot of people don't know this, but I'm actually the fourth generation in my family to do nonprofit work. It started many moons ago with both my great grandmothers, actually, that were very active. My one was active in the Negro Actors Guild to just, help actors get jobs and get paid and still have like a roof over their head, right? In pursuing their passions, and the other was the first woman president for the Marcus Garvey Club in New York City. So they did great things. And then my grandmother, nurse by trade, who would help a lot of people in the community. And I literally grew up like being in her house often, and every now and then I'd look up and I'm like, who is this person now living with you? And she'd say, oh, that's so-and-so. They needed a place to stay, so they're going to be here for a few months. So I grew up in that type of environment of caring and outreach and being in the community, and I thought it was normal, right? And then I grew up and realized, like, no, everyone does not do that. Like, they should, right? But in reality, they don't do that. And so, working with my mother, us being the third and fourth generation of women doing this work in the community has just been such a beautiful experience.
And it sounds like just a very natural thing for when you guys saw a need, because you experienced that need, to give back to others that were having the same need when you identified a gap in services and a place where you could serve. That's wonderful. I think a lot of us can have experience with looking at that kind of if we take the time to look back and what influenced us to get into philanthropy or get into nonprofits or to have a passion for grants, although it's accidental, it's not really, it's really at our core, right?
Yeah. I'd agree with that for sure.
I love that.
Yeah.
Love
And
that.
I will say too, I forgot what I was going to say. My goodness. I would say too, like I was listening to NPR, and like to your point about it being really at our core, it was a farmer, right? And the whole article was about, well, the whole audio was about this like millennial farmer, right? Like this doing this really, really cool farming. And, they were just commenting on different things. And he started to tell his story, and it sounded very similar to my story, right? Something he just naturally gravitated to, and the universe kind of presented these opportunities to just lead him in this direction very organically.
Mm-hmm.
And he was in this space and he was functioning well, exceeding and really helping people in the community. And then years later, he realized, I don't know who told him, but someone said, do you know like 5 generations of your family have been farming? Like, this is just not something you like to do. This is something inbred in your DNA. And so I kind of feel that way because people will say, clients say this too. They say, there's something about you, like this is just organic. Like the work that you do is just organic and it just flows from you. And I see it, and they know nothing about me, right? They just kind of pick up on the energy. So I do think it's kind of just one of those things that just through generations have just kind of been instilled in me.
Yeah. I would say the same thing, that I experienced that with you, that I felt that before I knew your story. And I know that you're working with someone on discovering your story and talking about that. We won't get into a lot of detail about that, but I know that just like that farmer discovered, you're discovering more and more about this family legacy, and it really ties into your story. It is very natural flow, and it becomes kind of obvious that of course you're in this work. Of course when you think of leaning into leadership, you think of service. You think of, but leadership service, that servant leadership. I think you and I both have said that that's our style of leadership, and it just feels really natural. And when it feels that natural, it helps others kind of come along with you and to get that vision. So that's wonderful. I'm so glad that your clients are picking up on that too. So, we touched on what brought you to the grant profession, that you were working at the Bank of America Foundation. You and your mom started your own nonprofit. And then you said in 2016, you decided to become a grant consultant. Can you tell us a little bit about that? And then I know that you have a recent accomplishment that I'd love to hear about, that I'd like to share with people. Obviously, I've heard about it. But, kind of share how you started your consulting firm, and then talk a little bit about that goal that you set for yourself, and how you accomplished it, and what it really means to you.
Yes, of course. So starting with kind of how that moment that propelled me to start thinking in grant consulting. At the time, I was working at Bank of America Foundation, dream job. Great income, great exposure, just great opportunities to be connected with so many wonderful nonprofits that are doing great work in the community. Through that exposure, I just saw so much potential to do more. I would look at applications and I would read different programs, and I'd say, my goodness, they were so close, right? We almost funded them, especially being in the room and hearing the conversations, right? They were so close. And in those positions, it's difficult to give feedback. You can give feedback, but you can't, go too far into it because, of course, it's a liability when you do that. And so I just saw so much potential, and I just had an overwhelming desire to like roll my sleeves up and get closer to nonprofits and be able to literally hold their hand, be their partner, and walk with them on their journey as with the expertise and experience to be able to do that, right? And help them get grants better is what I term it, right? So that is how thinking in grant consulting kind of started. I literally kind of planned my transition with business planning and all the things you do when you're starting a business, right? And I launched August 15th, 2016, and it's been a phenomenal experience. And so I just can't say enough about just the joy of not only supporting clients, but supporting my teammates, right? Those that work for me and work with me, to empower them to really support themselves professionally, right? And to expand their experience. And that kind of leads to my big announcement. So I am one of the newest GPC credential holders. If you all are not as familiar with GPC, it is a exam where you have to, you're demonstrating competencies, and those competencies are those that GPCI has designated as the things that grant writers should master. And so having the opportunity to sit for the GPC was phenomenal. It took me a few years to get the nerve to actually sit for the exam. For a while, I was just too busy building a business, quite honestly. I was busy trying to nurture my baby, right? And so you get to the point, especially as a budding business owner at that time, where I said, okay, do I invest this money back in my business and grow it, or do I register for the GPC, right? And so I applied for the GPC scholarship, and that was very helpful because I don't think I would have sat for it without it. And so applying for and getting the scholarship really kind of put things in perspective, right? Someone's investing in you, right? Yes. And you're going to be a wise steward of this investment, and you're going to sit and you're going to do well. But even before that, I had some fellow grant professional friends that kind of was like, girl, what are you doing? Like, why are you not sitting for this exam? You know, I had a few people like during conference, they were like, Shavonn, like, I thought you had your GPC already. Like, what are you doing? So they encouraged me to sit for it. And of course, with Joe's support too, right? Just having like Smarty grants and the preparation, and not just the preparation as far as like the content of what Smarty Grants provides, but the mentorship from Joe, to me, helped me beyond just anything you can do, right? You can just pick up a book and read, but having that one-on-one and having the quality of what the Smarty Grants provided was very, very helpful as far as the preparation. So doing that, and also volunteering to lead some study groups, the DC study group, and a few of them, I think I might have did a little too much with the study group preparation, because I was maybe in 3 study groups, and my thoughts were, well, I'd rather like do too much than not enough. Right. So I did a lot with that. So, you know, 6 months later, I sat for the exam, and I found out that I passed. So I'm very, very excited about it.
That is awesome. And yes, I think a lot of us did expect that you would have your grant professional certification, that you would earn that credential. It's challenging. It's a very challenging exam. Some people do not pass the exam. It is not easy. And did you do it in 1 day or 2?
I did do it in 2 days. I did the multiple choice the first, and then the writing the second.
And I think you're incredibly smart to take part in study groups and in, mentoring. And it wasn't just my mentoring. We have a group that mentors each other, that everybody's asking the same questions and answering different questions. And to your point, you asked the question, should I invest in my business or should I take the exam? And now that you've gone through the study process and you prepared for the exam and you took the exam, I think you'd probably agree that it is an investment in your business. How has the GPC and you're having that credential impacted the conversations that you have with clients and what clients get out of knowing that you have the GPC, and that the Grant Professional Certification Institute is an accredited organization? Yes. This is the only accredited credential, and that you hold it. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah. Well, the first thing I will say is now that I'm on the other side and as a business owner, I'm committed to advancing and helping others get their GPC by contributing to the scholarship, right? So that to me is really important. from what I have benefited from, and as far as clients, number one, I've told the entire world. You can ask Joe. The entire world knows I have the GPC. Every conversation I had with my current clients leading up to it, I said, let me tell you what I'm in the process doing. I'm preparing for the GPC. Let me tell you about it, and every single conversation with even current clients. So even with potential clients now that I have gotten the certification, I'm really explaining it because people need to understand what it is, right? So you need to be able to explain that to people so that they can see how valuable it is. And I have to explain to people what it is. And I've said, I'm one of 17 in the state of Georgia that has GPC, sharing additional information. And then sometimes questions will come up. They'll say, well, we're interviewing other people, and what's your track record, the common questions that do come up as a consultant. And basically I'll say, well, when I explain the GPC credential and what it is, there's no more questions. So it's literally a stamp of approval by a third party that is confirming this person knows what they're talking about. They are trustworthy. And not only as far as being a grant professional, but the ethics part as well.
Yes.
Yeah, right?
Yes.
To know that we're not only knowledgeable, you're going to be in trusted hands, but also ethically we are at we are abide by a different set of ethics. We take it very, very seriously. All grant professionals do, but it's a heightened sense of that when you're a GPC credential holder. So
you're accountable to the
accountable
and to hold their code of ethics.
Yeah, they can make a phone call to GPCI at any moment, and we're in hot water. So that's it's an extra accountability there, which is no problem, because if you're already living that way, this is it's no big deal. But it does make the client feel better to know, especially when you hear those stories about past experience that weren't always so pleasant with grant writers.
Right. That's excellent. That is excellent. So when did it feel real? When did you really say, I did it? I earned my GPC. Was it when you got the call? What made you really feel that sense of ownership and that you really earned it?
Yeah, well, I got an email and it was like, oh, you passed. And it was late in the middle of the night. And so I woke up the next day like, did I read what I think I read? So I had to go read it again just to make sure. And then I said, oh.
No fanfare.
No fanfare. And then I kind of went through changing my signature in my email and updating things and emailing my website people like, hey, I had GPC on the back of my name, right? I went through those motions, and then it started getting real when I was celebrating with my fellow grant professionals, right? Especially being in study groups and reaching out to Joe and say, Joe, my goodness, I passed, especially being a Smarty, right? And, celebrating with my Smarty peoples too, was exciting. So it got a little more real there. They say when you share things with other people, then now it's like, it becomes real, right? So that was like the second step of the realness. And the last step came about 2 days ago, and I got a package in the mail, and I'm like, Amazon, right? And I said, oh, wow, this isn't Amazon. This is something else. So let's just see what this is. And I opened it, and it was my GPC certificate. So you get two things. You get, a pretty certificate, and then you actually get a letter. So when I read the letter, and then it said, congratulations, this letter serves as proof. And then it was like a signature in ink written on the bottom. And it was very pretty. It wasn't the regular quality of paper. It's almost like the higher quality. It was like resume paper almost. And so when I read that, I said, wow, this is real. And I showed it to my husband. He said, yeah, see, wow. He was like, I always knew that you would pass, and I never doubted you for a second. And then there was like this pretty certificate. So I said, well, now I have to get a frame for my certificate. I'm so proud. And I have to put it on my wall. And I looked on my wall and I realized, I said, well, my bachelor's degree isn't on the wall, nor is my MBA, which is very interesting. But I'm here about to put my GPC on the wall because that's how much it means to me. So I think eventually I'll get into getting my bachelor's and my MBA on the wall. But right now, my GPC is there, front and center.
Excellent. It does mean a lot. And I don't know what that is. I think it's because it does tie so much into our passion. It's not, a lot of people go and they earn their bachelor's or their master's or their MBA, and they they go off in different directions.
Mm-hmm.
And that's wonderful and valuable. The GPC is a small group, like you said. You're one of 17 in Georgia,
and I think it's
incredible.
357 across the country.
Yeah. And so, I mean, it's a huge sense of accomplishment, but again, it ties back into what you were talking about before, that passion and that legacy that you have in your family of serving. And it probably represents that even more in some of your other accomplishments, because it is at the heart of who you are, of what I know you to be.
Yes.
So I love that. Well, I think that, if it's not obvious to everybody else here, you do lean into leadership, and you lean into leadership in a servant leader way, but you also take chances and build things, like building your own business, starting your own nonprofit. I mean, you go for it. And, as we think about, what's the future for Shavonn? What are some of the opportunities that you're looking at, or that you have, dipped your toe in, or that you're considering for the future?
Yeah. Well, I think, it's really about kind of connecting with people and just trying to be in spaces where you can help, right? And so there's a few different things that I've done and I'll continue to do. And there's some other things that are kind of new for me, right? And so, like, some of the things that I've done and I'll continue to do is like participating in webinars. Like, I'm often asked to speak in different spaces, whether it's, now it's virtually, but, traditionally it's maybe at a conference or in other things, or, be on a blog, or I was recently asked to support a white paper, a nonprofit white paper, which that's new. In the past, I've also served on boards. I've served on advisory boards as well. And, going forward, I've expressed interest of being a candidate to serve on the GPA board of directors. So that would be a great opportunity if that comes to fruition. And just continuing doing things like that, right? Like continuing just connecting with people, being in spaces to help and contribute in any way that I can.
That's great. So Shavonn is one of the candidates that's running for the Grant Professionals Association board, which I served on, and I'm really pleased with the candidates that are running this year. We'll put a link up for the candidates to meet the candidates, and you can get to know a little bit more about Shavonn too. I think the future is very, very bright for Shavonn, and I'm so glad that you are so dedicated, not only to your clients, not only to the mission of your clients and the mission of your organization, but to the profession as a whole. That's the one thing I feel that we share, very deeply together, is that as I'm moving forward, it's just like your nonprofit that you did with your mom. As I see a gap or a struggle and I can help somebody else so that they don't have to do that, I'm just going to bring them along with me.
Yeah, that's totally.
Really what, Smarty Grants came about like that. GrantChat came about like that. Think Inc. came out like that. And I see, you are, half a step in front of somebody, and you're not just looking forward, you're looking behind and along. And so that being part of the study groups, as you're moving forward, you're bringing people along too. So, I mean, you gave credit to some mentoring and stuff, but you mentored a lot of people that recently took their tests and stuff, and you continue to do that. And I really appreciate that about you and about Lisa Kay. We'll get to meet her.
Yeah, she's awesome.
She is. She really is. She helped with the DC study chapter and other things, but you guys are all hear about her a little bit more. Shavonn, thank you for being here with me today.
Thanks for having me.
I know how incredibly busy you are. She even has 2 grants due today.
I do.
So today. You for your time. You are generous with your time and your expertise and with all you do. And I am so glad that we're in the same profession together.
Me too, Jo. Thank you.
Thank you. Hi, this is Jo again. I hope you enjoyed our time together with Shavonn. A special thank you to her for spending time with us and for sharing her journey in leading into leadership and advancing the grant profession. If I can do anything to help you on your journey in the grants profession or leaning into leadership in the nonprofit world, please let me know. You can always reach out to me at joe@smartygrants.com. Thank you again for joining us today. We'll see you soon. Get grants, do good.